Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the council meeting of the 28th of September 2020. This meeting is being conducted with COVID-19 protocols in place for social distancing and isolation. The meeting is being conducted electronically using Zoom and is being live streamed on Facebook Live. Town Hall is closed to the public and the most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. The public may send questions directly to the recording secretary's email at jwest@kentville.ca. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting package? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been circulated? I will remind members of council that we are in decision-making mode and we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel. We have committed to making balanced and respectful decisions and adhering to our code of conduct. We will be voting by poll. The chair will call your name and ask, "How say you?" This method permits us to verbally record your vote. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before this meeting commences? CEO Smith, could you please take the roll call? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. This evening we have all members of council present. We have the solicitor, Jeff Matart, and not visible to us are Jason Bethune, our IT person, and Jennifer West.
Thank you very much. You have before you the proposed agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? If I could have a motion to accept.
Moved.
Thank you. And seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. You have before you the council meeting minutes from September 14th. They have been distributed. Are there any errors or omissions from these minutes? I have something on page 6. So the recommendation to council with regards to the FCM money, in the top paragraph, the addition is repeated twice, so one of those should be stricken. And in that original motion, I had made the error of saying 2020-2021 capital budget. I hadn't realized that it was going to be the following year, but it was amended to read as it says below. So if those two changes could be made, it would be greatly appreciated. Is there anything further on those minutes? All right, moving on. So we move on to our unfinished business, and the first item is litter downtown and the part-time downtown cleanup staff. CAO, report for on that one.
Yes, as most members of council are aware, and I think members of the parish in its position initially on a temporary basis, but the gentleman involved is working out very well for us and has done considerable work in the square and is working his way around. At the same time, the Parks group have done some work on the weeds that had gotten ahead of us a bit. So we're making progress. We have a ways to go yet, but we wanted to formally advise council and the community that we have the position back there to make sure the downtown is as clean and well kept as we can.
Excellent, thank you. We have Deputy Mayor, you have some.
Thank you, Worship. Brian, I got to say, he's done an absolute wonderful job. He's doing an excellent job as he goes all through town. My one question or comment would be, what do we do to ensure that the town doesn't get to the state that it was in, that we get to the point where it's desperate and we've got to, how do we not let the town get to the state that it was in this summer?
I think that's a very good question, and clearly this position is part of your regular establishment. There's no question it should have been filled, but we were in one of those human resource issues where someone was ill, and we were dealing with that over time. And it just got a little longer than perhaps would have been desired. But in future, it's our intention to fill the position on a permanent basis and maintain it. So we should be able to preserve that upkeep of the town, of the downtown.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Pulsifer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really got my question answered. Councillor Gerard had sort of had the same idea I did. Wondered how we got to the state we were in with those weeds. They were like blooming along with the flowers as well. So it was, yeah, it was just not perhaps how we wanted to look in town. But he is doing a great job. He's busy every time I see him around town, and looked like he was even working on Saturday. So yeah, I certainly want to comment him on the great work that he is doing for the department. So thanks.
Thank you very much, and I'll pass the comments on to him. I see him as often as I see almost all the other members of Public Works. And I should say, though, that the weed part was done by our parks folks and complemented what he's been doing. So it is a team approach.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anything further on that matter? Nothing? All right. We'll move on to the next matter that comes back before us, and that is our noise bylaw. And we have a new draft, and I'm sure that that you've had the weekend to review this. So I would ask for a motion to approve first reading of the noise bylaw.
So moved.
Thank you. And seconder?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approves first reading of the noise bylaw. Is there any discussion? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just in reviewing this over the past weekend, I noticed, and thank you for the submission, CAO Smith, I noticed in section 1 there, you make some reference to what other town bylaws had for levels. And I noticed in there that between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., which is more the area that I was looking at, Truro had 55, Wolfville had 55, and Windsor West Hants had 45 to 55. And I understand that there's separate levels for commercial and residential and or institutional properties. So I know in our last meeting when we discussed this, the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., we talked about 65 decibels, and I would like to push that we have that down to 55 so that it's in accordance with some of the other like areas. Thank you.
We'll do the discussion and then look at voting on that proposal. Councillor Giroux, or Deputy Mayor, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question pertains to this, but it was an issue, and I think it's a larger issue than just the noise bylaw. But did we figure out when someone does call town hall and says, I have an issue with a neighbor with noise, where that call is directed? Because I've talked to these folks and they were told it's a planning department issue, and planning said, no, it's a police issue, and it went back and forth. And to get something like this in stone is wonderful, but to stop people, to stop residents from getting the runaround on, oh no, that's not us, you got to call someone else, I think is a bigger fix than this will be. Thank you.
CAO, did you want to deal with that?
Well, yes and no. I'd like to avoid it, but I think it's a legitimate question. As council adds the number of bylaws to be enforced, clearly there's a response on the staff side as to who's going to do it. But I would suggest to you that having a noise bylaw in place will create the circumstance for staff to set up the enforcement procedure. I have administered this bylaw in my time in Wolfville. It's quite a few years ago, but it was the similar bylaw. And at that time, it worked through our normal bylaw enforcement process that we had in the town. And I think that's what we will have to do. I would hope that the public wouldn't expect suddenly that every noise issue is going to be responded to immediately. because we're doing other bylaws as well and that enforcement. But the issue of who's in charge, in terms of council, when you pass a bylaw, the CAO is in charge of enforcement and getting that done. And we have resources, very good resources to do that kind of thing. But we are going to be starting from ground zero on a noise bylaw. This town has not had one, but as I say, I'm quite used to dealing with the noise bylaw in other towns of similar size. So I think it's fairly timely to have something like this to respond to. At least you've got the procedure in place. Now you can fairly ask one department to manage the response. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bolland.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Yeah, certainly we've got a good policy here to look at. And I like Councillor Savage's idea as well to look at the number. I certainly have made calls on behalf of people in my community here on noise issues, and the Kentville Police have responded accordingly. But, you know, we certainly need to have some teeth in this. And is the instrumentation being purchased or budgeted for to measure the sound level, Mr. CEO? Do you know anything about that?
With respect, your CAO just barely got the document updated. I didn't bother pursuing that. I did make a quick contact with Wolfville to find out if they have used a meter, and they have from time to time. So we'll track that down. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. It is part of gearing the tools up, but as I said previously, you need this document before we go out and buy the tool to enforce it.
Is there anything further? All right, we have a recommendation from, Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Brian, CEO Smith, I may have missed it in here, but I didn't see anything that alluded to continuous.
I may, it's in the definition, as I recall.
Section 529.
I have it in section 3.1, which is highlighted in yellow, I believe, on your package. So just under scope, and the word continuously, in fact, is there in italics.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry.
So I think that's where we dropped it in.
Okay.
The definition itself, which is also highlighted for a weighted sound level,
Yes.
does make reference to something that is carrying on, I believe, for some time.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. All right, we have a recommendation from Councillor Savage to change the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. from 65 dBAs to 55 dBAs. I will poll each member of council and ask if you wish to keep it as is at 65, or do you wish to change to 55? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I will opt to change to 55.
All right. Councillor Bolland.
Yes, 55.
All right. Councillor Maxwell. You're on mute. No DBs.
Yes, I would go to 55.
All right, thank you. Councillor Pulsper?
Yes, 55.
All right. Councillor Andrew?
55.
All right. And I'll say leave it at 65, but the motion is carried to keep it to 55. So CAO, you will make that change to change it from 65 to 55 dBA for 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve first reading of the noise bylaw with the amendment as discussed. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Bolland, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Pulsper, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Andrew, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Savage, how say you?
Yes.
I say yes, and the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to our councillor reports, and in the interest of time, if you can hit the high points, we'd greatly appreciate that. So, Councillor Andrew.
Let me find this here. You're not putting it up, right?
No.
No, okay.
So you actually have 2 months. You've got July, end of July, August, and beginning of September here.
Well, I had, King's Transit, what I did is I gave just a little bit of a brief kind of, I was a little more reflective this time. Basically, when I first started on council and started with King's Transit, some of you may remember that King's Transit was in dire straits in terms of accounting, and it took a lot of time and some changes around our people doing accounting and some new general managers and all those kind of things. And King's Transit is in flux again, and I would just say that Kentville needs to take a serious look at what that's my thought at the end of this 4 years, is Kentville needs to take a serious look at what our public transportation needs are, and handle that accordingly. In terms of accessibility advisory committee, such a good thing. I've had a couple of discussions with citizens who are concerned. And so for some people, this need, the need for change is now or yesterday even. And so when you say the objectives are to be met for 2030, I think it's important to note that this committee is not taking the procrastination approach. It's more about being proactive. A consultant has been retained to figure out how we chart this course and meet these objectives and beat these objectives. And this past meeting was our first in-person meeting in many months, and we met on the ground floor of the rec center, and that was very nice to do. Joint Fire Service, we have an interim chief right now. Scott Hamilton is acting as interim chief. Finances were done. I think one thing of note to brag about our own staff is that our auditing was done, and our own accounting director was complimented, because apparently what is presented at year's end there is far above what is typically expected. We had some important or emergency meetings around legal and personnel matters, and I continue to receive calls around affordable housing, and just wanted to say thank you for this. Even though this time has been brief with our interim CAO, it has really set the standard, for me personally, in terms of his just the way he's attended to our concerns and communicated with us very, very clearly, very openly. And I think he's set a very high standard that I hope will come to bear on our permanent person in that role. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Councillor Boland, please.
Well, I had a question.
Yes, for me. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Andrew.
Okay, just a minute, please. Councillor Savage is ahead of you for questions. I wasn't paying attention to the hands up. Sorry. Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Worship. Councillor Andrew, so when you talk about King's Transit, and really taking a serious look at the organization, and I'm assuming you're referring to the structure and the finances, et cetera. What's happening now? Is there a study being undertaken, or is there something happening operationally that will improve it? Or I'm assuming they're probably drilling down and trying to get granular on what's been happening and how they can improve.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to find your faces again. Absolutely, and I think when I say that, it's from a Kentville perspective. King's Transit as an organization has, as every organization, has a will for survival, and I'm not in any way saying I've come to doubt the need for public transportation. I just am not sure that, and I think this is a great time to reflect on. Obviously, ridership is down. This year is going to be a very different year, and I can't imagine a better year to kind of do a bit of a rethink. So in terms of the accounting and the books, those kind of things, those things are up to date now, and we had a great I think even though it was too short, our time with Glenn Bannon he was the tops. I mean, he really was great. And I just think we need to look at what are our needs. This is a pretty significant item for us budget wise. And if it's not meeting our needs, so yeah, there is broader discussion, but that discussion has not really, in terms of research, that research is going to focus on more the needs of King's Transit, and that's kind of what I've seen. It's more self-focused, and I would highly suggest that Kentville, that we need to figure out what are our needs, what are the needs of our citizens and our people, and I'm not suggesting that this entity isn't the right entity for us to partner with, but I think that King's Transit needs to hear that, and I think this is a great time for the organization to do a rethink in between general managers and with a new board soon to form, and we've talked about. There has been discussion around some micro transit and maybe some shorter runs within town and more frequent runs. If public transit's really going to make it, it needs to work for those people, whoever they are. And we have a lot of seniors, and that's increasing in our town. So if we're going to make that attractive to them, regularity of service is going to be a big part of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Council Ballin, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. No, I was just wondering, when was the last time King's Transit has met?
There was a meeting in August. I had a family thing I had to attend to, but it was really a very short meeting. So there really has been very little going on. There was a general manager hired, and it was intended to be interim. And then that individual did not actually start. They stepped aside from that position before they started. So things are a little bit loose there right now. And at this point, with the authority, I mean, yeah, the buses are running, and there's a lot to be grateful for. There's some new equipment and upgrades, and all those things are happening as per normal. But ridership has definitely been impacted by this. Lower fuel costs has been in the favor of the authority. But I just think if there's going to be a time for a serious rethink from a Kentville perspective, I don't think we're a significant partner in King's Transit, and I think this is the time to do a rethink seriously.
Were there any figures released at the meeting on ridership, etc.? I mean, you have your own personal opinion on King's Transit, but
yeah, ridership is down. I think ridership was. I can get you those numbers, but I think ridership was at it was less than half of typical ridership. But obviously things are normalizing to some extent, but there's some people who don't want to ride because of fear. Some, not all, but some of the ridership are people who would be potentially in that vulnerable age bracket. So there's a lot of things to consider there, and even the capacity. So the authority, I will say, has taken that very seriously, and we did, as you may recall, we did actually cease service for a time because of those concerns.
Last question: who's our alternate if you can't make a meeting?
If I can't make it, it's Lynn.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Andrew, you answered my question. My question was going to be about an interim general manager. But with the election coming up, the authority board could look very different. And if we've got a manager there that's surely qualified or will be qualified, but learning how the authority has done things and trying to catch up. I guess my question is, when that happened at Valley Waste, the CAOs sort of, for lack of a better term, took control of overseeing things for a while. Is that going to happen with the King's Transit Authority, or?
Well, we've got our chair is Councillor Hodges, who's not running again. and she's been very active. And it's going to be a real loss to the authority. That's a great thought, a great suggestion, and actually one that I certainly don't mind following up. If that's, I think that makes complete sense. This is probably not the right time to make those kind of decisions when whoever is hired is going to be working with a different configuration of folks. And it may be really, now we're in a situation where we have an interim CAO, but also one who's very experienced. So it may give a different vantage point, and it'd be great to have the CAOs present. I don't know what the arrangement is now, but when Mark was our CAO, he was involved with the authority and was quite adept at what was going on there. I think that'd be really helpful. And then that person can do a handoff to new counselors who are on the authority.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, Councillor Bolland, your report, please.
Okay, it's quite brief, but last council meeting attended was July 27th. Last council advisory was September 14th. I attended some of the events at Town Square at the gazebo this summer, as we all did, I think. Had a great coffee with our intern CO, Smith. That was on September 1st. And so Valley Waste met last week. They had a summer break. So that was also attended by CO Smith as well, so he can jump in at any point. Just a few highlights. The GM report, he thanked the retiring members, John Kinsella, co-chair Barry Corbin, and myself. The distribution of surplus that goes to the partners and the dollar amount is pending, and that will be shared to the CEOs by email in the near future. The cottage country transition to curbside pickup has gone very well, very little negative feedback, and that has made life easier for about 1,000 cottage residents and year-round residents at various places in the county. The last reuse center at Valley Waste is still closed due to COVID restrictions. Basically, on Saturdays, they get a lot of people there, but there isn't a lot of room. So until they find a bigger place or the COVID restrictions lessen, that's going to stay closed. The operating fund, as of the end of July, had a surplus of just over $375,000. That was due in a big part to savings from having no spring cleanup. That saved about $81,000. They saved over $24,000 on fuel costs and some other things. One senior staff member has been eliminated as a result of the staffing review, and it's a full report coming on that that'll be presented to the new board in October and November. And that's my report.
All right, thank you. You have one question, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I go out there fairly frequently, Councillor Bolland, and I know the state that it's in, and I know why it's in the state that it's in. But is there any the piles are getting out of hand? I've talked to people who have had damage done to tires and stuff like that because they're not cleaning up certain areas. Is there anything on the near horizon where stuff's going to get cleaned up at Valley Waste?
I never heard that concern at the meeting at all. So if you want to send the chair a note, you could, but it certainly didn't come up.
Okay.
In the meeting about that. So.
Okay, perfect.
I'm not sure if CEO Brian heard anything, but I certainly didn't. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, problem.
All right, moving on, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Let's see, July 29th, Temple Water, meeting with the mayor, some emergency council meetings, special council meetings. August 28th, Police Commission, really not a whole lot going on there. COVID protocols. I don't think the number of calls they thought they were going to get with people being homebound were as bad. September the 10th, the NSAPG, basically everything's shutting down for the DOJ isn't having meetings. We're not having our fall conference. The police chiefs in Nova Scotia aren't having their fall conference. The CAPG, the Canadian Association of Police Governance, is still going on. That is going to be all an online thing. And I think from what I remember from our executive meeting with NSAPG, because we aren't sending 2 members, we're going to pay for the service fee or the fees or whatever. So all of the NSAPG and essentially our own board members can be part of that. September 24th, Joint Fire Services. And one thing that Councillor Andrew didn't mention, their payments come from Aldershot. So we have a standing agreement with Aldershot. The town of Kentville has a standing agreement with Aldershot that happened long before it was sort of a joint fire service for a set rate for when they have to go up. So that payment is $63,000, of which our portion, which it's a rolling stop portion, our portion of that is 30% based on the contract from when it was. There's currently talks by the fire department with Aldershot, which I don't necessarily agree with, but this could reshape the way that the fire service is or at least the fire service contract. We could be entering into sort of a 3-way agreement with the county and Aldershot, but that remains to be. These talks are all very preliminary, and the Joint Fire Service, I think, is going to get involved on exactly what that's going to look like. So anyways, that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Let me see. I've tried to get to most of the recreation events this summer, or at least take in some of them. I won't go through everything. My committee meetings, I attended them all. The Police Commission, the Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition, and the KCA PTA have all met before this meeting. And I will talk a little bit about Annapolis Valley Trails and KCA PTA in a bit. I did attend all of the council meetings, special council meetings, and so on. I took in the Kentville Plays at Oakdean Park in August, as well as the Tara Stevens concert and the Melbournes at Oakdean Park. Those events were, very popular and very well attended. I met with CAO Smith and we had a nice chat. I also took in the Learning to Drum event under the gazebo, and that was a fantastic event. The people who were instructing actually had everybody who was there drumming and learning a song, and at the end they put it all together. It was fantastic. I met with a Kentville citizen on September 4th. We were discussing the animal control bylaw, in particular the dog part. And in talking with the police chief at the police commission meeting, found out that whole bylaw is being revamped. So anyone with concerns should be getting in touch with the police chief there. I attended the Lions Club Jam session on September 9th at Center Square. Again, a fantastic. Sophie. Hey, that's enough. There's one of your Zoom things. Stop. Just excuse me for a minute.
Never know what's going to happen with Zoom. Kathy mentioned a dog, and Sophie thought she was talking about her.
Oh, there's one barking outside somewhere. The jam sessions that the Lions have been doing, I don't know if anybody else has been to them, but everyone becomes more popular, I think, than the one before it. And a fantastic event. for downtown Kentville and promotion of the Lions Club. And the people that are there really, really enjoying those events. And I think it just filled a niche of people that really needed something. And kudos to the Lions Club for coming up with that idea. Just great. And I attended the celebration for the police chief in September. So getting down to my reports, Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition, the new website is up and running. I would highly recommend that everybody go on and take a look at it. It is amazing. It's called destinationtrailsnovascotia.com. And it's just awesome. I can't talk about it enough. Everything you'd want to know to make a trip, or a biking trip in the province, and especially in our area. This site covers three trails: the Rum Runners Trail on the South Shore, the Harvest Trail here, and the Celtic Shores Trailway up around Truro. And so it is awesome, and really I would highly recommend that. Judy Russell from AVCC came in and did a presentation on tourism, and it was interesting to hear how COVID was affecting tourism and so on. And they are really going to heavily promote the trailways, especially the Harvest Moon Trailway. And they have the website up on their website, so the link is there. And they've done some research, and what they're finding that what bikers are looking for are wineries, craft beer locations, cideries, and restaurants. So we have some of that. And so that's nice to know that with some promotion there, we should have people visiting. I thought it was interesting. There was anybody who's been to Upper Clements Park, they had a locomotive, an old locomotive down there. And that locomotive is now in Middleton and is part of their trail site. So the trail that runs through Middleton, they have that locomotive sitting on it as part of the Middleton Railway theme. So that has moved up there. And an idea that came out of that is that to have some box cars maybe along the route, along the Harvest Moon Trailway, and eventually have them for small businesses in the summer to operate out of those box cars. So that's something for the future, but I thought it was an interesting idea. KCA PTA, of course, all meeting on Zoom. Officers were set for the year. Laura Churchill Duke is staying on as president. The group is still going to carry out some fundraising, some of the ones that they can do without large member gatherings and so on. Meet the Teacher events will not be held this year at the school, or at least for now. The principal, however, will be giving lots of communication out to parents about students and things like that. The school is going to try to do the events that the children really love, such as the pumpkin drop. So that one will take place. It's a very popular event, and the kids love it. So they're going to try and do those, but they'll look slightly different. But they're going to try and keep those events going. And one thing the school is looking for right now is tree stumps. So if anybody has some stumps out there that they could donate to the school or sell for a really reasonable cost, I'm sure the school would take them. They're looking for some small stumps that the younger grades can sit on, and some medium size for the older kids. They want to do teaching outside as much as possible. So that's what they're looking for there. And one of the first fundraisers is the Nourish Your Roots fundraiser. And if we check out the Nourish Your Roots website, you can go on there and order your vegetables, because that's what that's all about. And you can designate which school that you would like the proceeds to go to from your order. So that's going to be all done online. And it's a great idea for Thanksgiving or basically any time. So I would highly recommend that we support KCA's fundraisers and so on. And they'll do some teacher appreciation events this year as well. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, you have a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Maxwell, is the PTA at all concerned about the standardized menu for the cafeterias now, and they've also standardized the purchasing through 2 separate companies? I know when my wife volunteered at the cafeteria, they had a great relationship with local farmers to get produce and stuff like that. Is this standardizing of the purchasing going to eliminate that?
I don't think so. They didn't discuss that, but what they did discuss was the new methods of ordering and getting the food out to kids. They're doing it in individual packaging and delivering it and things like that. And they found that that is working fantastic. So the way it's being ordered, the way it's being distributed and so on, that's mostly what they spent their time talking about. And they are finding that is working great. Their orders have tripled in size, the amount of food that they're putting out this year. So that's a positive.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. I'll make mine brief. August was a bit of a lean month, certainly both with council as we were on vacation and my associated committees, but my last council meeting attended was September the 14th. On the 9th, I had investment advisory committee where we reviewed the portfolio with our investment advisor, and we're just north of 13 million. We had a pretty fulsome discussion around the changes now and coming, certainly in the world of investing. And COVID has prompted the investment advisory committee to review its IPS, its investment policy statement, in order to meet the changing times. So these are ongoing discussions around a growth portfolio versus an income type portfolio. So there's lots more to come on that, but it's something that's at the forefront and we're having some good discussions around. September the 17th, I attended Regional Sewer. Just a few highlights from that meeting. PepsiCo, we talked a little bit about that they have more of a formalized plan now, better controls so that they're not exceeding some of their levels. I don't remember if it was TSS or BOD, but I think it was BODs. So that seems to be better now. We have a letter from the environment with some remedial work that's being done since July, primarily updates to the ops manual with some contingency plans. The core content won't change, but so just some slight changes there. Operational updates such as TSS and BODs and E. coli are all in order, which was nice to hear. They're at acceptable levels, and it's important to note that the aeration project was completed in May, so that obviously has had an effect on the scents that come from our sewer. The regional sewer. Capital updates, Director Bell talked about that near the bridge, the pipe work is complete, well within budget, and then we, of course, reviewed the financials for the 2020 year for regional sewer. September 8th, we had an in-camera meeting. Personnel, September the 16th, there was a meeting between myself and Mayor Snow and our investment advisor talking a little bit more about some of the options with regards to the changing investment environment. Early September, I met with our interim CAO Smith, and we talked about the state of the nation and other associated matters. September the 11th, as some of the other councillors attended, Kentville Police Service, the attended Chief Julia Chichetto's Governor General Exemplary Police 30-year bar, so that was lovely. And August 27th and September, I did attend a couple of the events that have taken place at Center Square, similar to Councillor Maxwell. And so I just want to say a special thank you to Lindsay and staff for bringing the Center Square project to us. I think it's been a wonderful addition to the community. We have seen the Lions Club participate, KBC, so thanks to Jen and Genevieve and Wade for bringing all the events on the Thursday nights. It's really brought the community together, and I think the other night, which would have been last Thursday night, I think there was upwards of about 125 people in there. So, but everybody was physically distancing, and some folks had masks on. But it's nice to see that area being utilized the way that it is. So kudos to everybody who's made that happen. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pulsifer. You're on mute. She just lost her connection. We're just having a little technical difficulty here. Can you unmute? Try now, Lynn, you should be unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'll make it as quick. Last council meeting, September 14th, John did a great report on the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So my report was for July 23rd on that, plus we had another one just after I sent in my report. So what he said was all great, so we'll leave that. July 29th, Kentville Water Commission and Source Water Protection. I attended all the council meetings that we had for personnel and legal. I've been to 2 Annapolis Valley Regional Library Board meetings, August 11th and just the other day. August 25th, Kings Point to Point. I'll just leave that. Ridership is up compared to last year, but COVID has taken it down. But anyway, we're doing well. Mentoring Plus on September 15th. Mike Cameron is our coordinator here for Kentville, and he did a report on some of his activities reaching out to the agricultural sector, to the Deputy Police Chief, the Kentville's Active Living Coordinator, looking for participants of knowledge exchange. A new website for the Mentoring Plus is being launched, and there'll be a quarter report coming out in October. September 17th was one of my Annapolis Valley Regional Library Board meetings. September the 22nd, Kings Point to Point. And I'll just go into a little detail. We did have our board meeting, the Kings Point to Point annual meeting, board meeting combined. The chair's report, a successful year for this charitable nonprofit organization, which provides a door-to-door service from Aylesford to Hants Border. It's used by all ages and ability, especially the accessible transportation portion of it. Inquiries are received daily with clients dropping into the storefront office in Kentville. There are new 3 drivers hired this year and 1 additional office staff person. 2 new vans were also purchased this year, for a total of 10 vehicles. Wheelchair clients account for 22% of the ridership. There has been no change in fares since 2012. Our funding comes from provincial CTAP, towns, and the municipality of Kings. The grants really help provide the funding for this organization. Kings Point to Point is in excellent shape, and there was a 13% increase in revenue over the years. So in spite of COVID, we've been able to move, be successful, and be able to provide the transportation that is necessary for those that depend on the Kings Point to Point options. So I guess that's my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I guess it's my turn. So what I'll do is I'll give you the highlights. So the Valley REN, the Valley Regional Enterprise Network, which is located, their office is right here in Kentville. But if you are in the business world, or you're even looking at getting into business, you're a small entrepreneur, even if you're running your business off your kitchen table, you really should check out their website. They have a program called Virtual Advisor Program, and it is open, it is free. and they can provide you with help. I think the magic word with COVID, or the word that's come out of COVID, is pivot. And you know, a lot of companies, small entrepreneurs, small businesses, even big business, are looking at pivoting, and sometimes you need some help. And I'm going to tell you that if the Valley Wren can't offer you that help, they know who can. And there are all kinds of programs out there right now. And what we have been meeting is every 2 weeks we're meeting something called the Regional Economic Recovery Task Force. And everything that's out there is coming to this group of people, and then it's being populated on the website. So grants are out there and they are available, so check it out. I cannot say that enough. The other thing I want to talk about is Engage Nova Scotia. So you'll recall last year, Engage Nova Scotia did a quality of life meeting. And I just want to say that our area had the most number of people completing the survey. But what came out of this survey is that in Nova Scotia, we have actually collected the most data that in any one of these Canadian surveys. And the data was actually mashed together by the University of Waterloo and put out. And right now what's happening is the 11 different areas of Nova Scotia are looking at how are we going to use this data and how do we put it out there for people. So I just want to say that our area, Annapolis Valley Hants, is one of the areas where we're all in the green. And, you know, we had a really great cross-section of people, but everyone finds some reason why their quality of life is just that much better here. So it's one of those big things. And, you know, and I think as we go on, it's going to become one of those key determinants that we look at when we're decision making. Some of the other things that I got to do, you know, in this day and age of COVID, groundbreaking is not quite the same. But Ryan's Park was just a beautiful story. Again, there's a great video out there on Facebook if you get an opportunity to have a look at it. I got to do a PowerPoint for the Kentville Rotary Club just on a few things that were happening around here in Kentville. Presentation of the Chief's 30-year medal. That was again one of those highlights. And you know, how do you present a medal while maintaining social distancing? But we managed it. And the TD Bank has been in Kentville for 50 years. So when you start looking at you know, the businesses in our downtown and the number of years they've been here, I think that that's really one of the things that that we can hold up high is how long businesses have been in our town. And I just want to say there was no cake because of social distancing, but we did a few photo ops with masks on. So I've been attending the NSFM webinars. It seems to be the flavor of the day, and some really great webinars, and they've all been free to municipal partners. So that's a wonderful thing. But they did put out a survey wondering whether or not people would be willing to pay for these things. So it's always one of those things that's out there. The other thing as well is that I'm very pleased to announce that I have been offered a position on the MIT REAP team. So MIT is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. REAP is Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. And there's several of these being conducted in across Nova Scotia, and the Valley is putting together a team, and they've asked me if I was willing to take on the government role, and I'm very pleased to accept. The wonderful thing about this is that we're not actually going to be going to MIT to do the program because of the COVID, but our Valley Wren is actually going to take on the cost of being part of this. It's a 10-member team, and it's a $30,000 fee per team, so $3,000 per person. But the Valley Wren is taking this on because they see it as part of our economic recovery. So it's really quite wonderful, and so there will be no cost to the town of Kentville for me to participate in this other than my time. And that is my report. If there are no questions, I will look for a motion. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Just on your last point there about the MIT, I think I was at one of the meetings. It would have been one of their board meetings where they had just touched on that. So they went ahead and can you expand on that a little bit more? I know you touched on it a little bit, but I just think it's important to give a little bit more meat.
Okay. So Nova Scotia actually has done one of these MIT REAP programs, and it's you'll recall, or you've probably heard in the news, something called Ocean Supercluster. And what happened is you put this group of 10 people together. There's university people, government, corporate, risk capital, so those are the people who would be funding it, and then entrepreneurs. So it's a group of 10. And basically you look at what is in your region that could be the next best thing. And so they try to bring these people together, and this original group from Halifax went together, not realizing or not even knowing where they were going to end up, and they've come out with this Ocean Super Cluster. So when you think of the Valley and you think of the different, the breadth of things that we do here, from 11 manufacturers to agriculture to fisheries, to our tourism industry, to the wineries. So you look at that, and what this group is going to come together and look at how do we create something that is going to bring more entrepreneurs, more funding. And so it's very exciting, and I'd like to say that I know what the answer is at the end of the day, but at this point we don't, other than we know all the things, all the capacity that we have here. And so they bring us together. They're actually going to teach us how to think it through and come up with whatever our next great thing is going to be. And I'm kind of using that term, next great thing, but I don't think that truly captures where we'll go with this.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
And I do have an overview sheet that I'll have posted so that you can all have a look at it. All right, so if I could have a motion to accept the councillor and mayor's reports as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Maxwell, I saw your hand. It has been moved and seconded that council and mayor's reports be accepted as presented. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. We've lost Councillor Pulsifer, but we will wait for her. She sent me a text to say that she's trying to connect again. We'll move on to our correspondence. We have two pieces of correspondence. The first is Housing in Kentville from Tammy Lutz, and the noise bylaw information from the Holbert family. We won't go any further into those. You've all had an opportunity to look at them. So we'll move on to our new business. And our first item of new business is, this is actually Right to Know Week. So all citizens have a right to know what is going on in their government, and the town of Kentville has provided a proclamation which will be posted on our bulletin board downstairs and on our website as per our policy. So we are resolving to proclaim September the 28th to October 4th, 2020 to be the Right to Know Week in the town of Kentville. So this is where FOIPOPs and that sort of thing come into play. So our next item on our new business is review of council meeting schedule. And Interim CAO Smith, I will hand this over to you to discuss.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here, if it'll pop up for me. There, hopefully you're seeing a bit of a calendar, and it may have a surprise for you, and that's kind of what we wanted to explain. We've looked at the dates that are coming up for council meetings, and I realize some of you are planning not to reoffer, so you have a certain view of it. Some of you are working very hard at reoffering and campaigning, but we all have to look ahead. And what we've discovered is there is a 10-day period between the election and when we should have a meeting in which people could ask for a recount. So in order to adjust for that, we're suggesting that the council meeting that was intended for October 26th be moved forward to Wednesday, the 28th. So that's one bit of news. The other bit of news here is the example we have from 2016 was a very positive meeting where the existing council finished some significant pieces of business, and then there was a swearing in, and then the new council did more business, and all in one meeting. And so the mayor and I have talked about how we might replicate that in the age of COVID-19, and it's going to be very different. So what we're hoping to do is kind of preview that with you this evening. We may have to trim down quite a bit of the ceremonial part of it. Normally the families of the candidates have been invited and that sort of thing. We've had a judge do the swearing in, but we're expecting we may have to trim that a bit. We'll know better when we actually have the election. We'll know better, we hope, by October 13th. I've told council that we're quite cautious, as staff at least, in terms of allowing people into the building before we get the renovations done downstairs, and that still applies. Secondly, there's been no change in the order from the Minister of Municipal Affairs to the effect that if we do meet, we have to have enough separation and all that kind of thing. So we'll be keeping that under advisement. We will be keeping council informed, but we wanted today publicly to say that we do have to meet or move the council meeting, and we may be changing the structure of that traditional swearing in ceremony and just how that all works, depending on where we are with COVID-19, the second wave, and all of those considerations. So we just wanted to put that up for you now, and we are building a number of other things around that calendar in the idea that we hopefully will have a new council in place on October 28th. So are there any questions on that? Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, Councillor Ballin, go ahead.
yeah, thank you. I probably would assume a 6 o'clock start on that date.
I would say you could assume that, but I really don't know at this point in time. We haven't made that decision at all. I think if the 4 o'clock is still working well for people, it's handy for me in terms of having my staff available for you during the CAC meeting. The council meeting is a little different. So we can adjust it. I think we'll talk to you on October 13th and hopefully have a plan then that we can recommend for the 28th.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
All right, no further hands up.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. That completes our business, our new business. So we do have in-camera business. So the council has confidential property and personnel related business, which must be conducted in a closed session. We require a motion to go into that closed session, and we will not be returning to Facebook Live for the adjournment. If I could have a motion, please.
Moved.
Thank you. And second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council move into a closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into the closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. The time is 5:05. Thank you. And staff, thank you very much for your time this evening.